Hi, my name is Kunal and I'm a flamenco artist from Bombay, India. I am a flamenco dancer, a creator and a conceptualizer. I do a lot of fusion and collaboration of flamenco with Indian art forms, Indian dance forms, Indian music forms, from folk of Rajasthan to Sufi to Kathak and some Bollywood. So I was born in a small town of Bhilai and came to Bombay at a very young age. Completed my schooling from Chembur, Our Lady of Perpetual Succor High School. I lived in Chembur all my life, very close to the RK studios. That was very exciting for me and I was very close to Mr. Raj Kapoorji also and the family. In school, I was very passionate about becoming a pilot, and that's the reason why I took up science in junior college. I was at Swami Vivekananda College in Chembur again. I did clear my medical exams and DGCA exams for becoming a pilot, but my final rounds I lost on my eyesight because I had a number, and back then you could not do anything about no operations, no LASIK, nothing. So I moved to commerce because I did not want to take up medicine or engineering. So I moved to commerce, and then I finished graduation from Mumbai University in commerce. I started dancing professionally when I was 14 years old, right from junior college. But then sab kar rahe the, so I started doing it too. That's when I told myself, okay, if you want to dance, actually my parents told me, if you want to dance, you might as well study also. That's when I took up NIT, National Institute of Information Technology, 3 years computer training course. I also did my MBA, but I never wanted to pursue a career in computers or in marketing, or never wanted to take up a job. I don't think I was cut out for that. And I had my friends pursuing it. They all were doing very well. But I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be different. And that's when I chose my passion and my art, and I continued. Dance was always my first love, my first passion. And I knew that I'm going to be continuing dancing and continuing being a dancer, choreographer and artist. I knew that back then. After college, I continued performing for a very long time for live concerts, live shows, live events, in India and internationally. I was working with a lot of choreographers, right from Terence Lewis to my first teacher, Darren Das, and Farah Khan, and n number of different performers and choreographers in the country, from pop artists to celebrities. I was fortunate enough to perform with some international artists like Ricky Martin, Diana King, Bonnie M. They did their tour, Noble Savages, Wickfield. They were all very big stars. And that time we used to have a lot of huge concerts, the Channel V road shows, the MTV road shows. So that kept me busy and going all throughout my college life, college career. In the year 2006, I landed up forming what was my next step. So I landed up designing and forming a small event management company. When I started doing concerts and events, celebrity events, entertainment events, for a lot of corporate houses, for different wedding events, for entertainment events. And because that was the next step after performing for so many years, that's what came easy to me, because the most important thing of having an event company or forming an event company is knowing your artists, knowing your technical teams, and I had spent a lot of time in many years performing, so I knew a lot of the technical strength, the artists one-to-one. That's when I decided to form this event management company. But then that was not what I actually wanted to do, because I always saw myself on stage as an artist, as a dancer, And when I was doing this, I somewhere felt within me that this is not me. It was doing well. Things were happening. Things were growing. But somewhere deep within, I was not happy. And that is when I decided to wrap up everything in 2012. And I started, that's actually the time also when all my friends and my peers were branching out either into television or into reality shows. But I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to stay connected with my audience live. That's when I started researching for something new and something different. And I came across flamenco, the Spanish flamenco. I saw a performance in India where an artist had come down from Spain and did a fusion with the Indian Kathak with late Chitresh Das ji. And I was blown because I was a huge fan of tap when I was young. But flamenco looked like tap, but it was not tap. And that's when I realized that this is something very unique, very different. And I really want to understand and know what this form is all about. I took an appointment with the artist after the show. I met him, and he was very, he was happy to share his experience with flamenco and what flamenco is all about. And that actually gave me a lot of inspiration. And at that meeting, at the end, he told me that, do you know, Kunal, the roots of flamenco are from India. And I was surprised about that one thing because that came as a very big surprise for me. And I went into the research of flamenco. I started researching flamenco. I started writing to Spanish artists in Spain. I started connecting with different schools. But no one replied because I was writing in English and I did not know Spanish. And somehow they are very, very particular about Spanish. Even if they know English, they will not talk to you in English. So with my research, I got to know that these gypsies, they had moved from India to Spain in the 14th century. And it's scientifically proven that they started off their journey from Rajasthan. There were gypsies from Romania, from France, who joined in together. And they all took abode in the south of Spain, in Andalusia. You still find the caves, the gypsy caves in Spain. And so I did my research, and in 2014 I wrapped up everything from India and I moved to Spain on my journey to pursue flamenco. I started flamenco in the caves of the south of Spain in Granada. That transformed my life. The journey from India to Spain and starting flamenco is when I found that thing missing within me that I was trying to do in India and pursue. And somehow I feel that I was looking out for flamenco, but when I was there, it felt like flamenco was looking out for me. It was incredible. I started studying flamenco. I was with different schools in the south of Spain, different institutions, different academies. I used to study about 8 to 9 hours a day from Monday to Friday with different teachers. Flamenco is not only a dance form, it's a culture in itself, and getting into a culture is very difficult when you come from a different country. Language was my biggest issue and fear initially because everything was in Spanish. And I had studied a little bit Spanish in India, but once you land up in Spain, the Spanish is very different. All your studies go for a toss because you really don't know the dialect and the ways in which the gypsies speak. It's very, very different, and they speak very fast. So I had to learn on the go. With flamenco, I used to be a good listener. That actually made me into a very good listener because I used to only listen and talk less, But yes, the studying in those schools, in those caves, studying with the gypsies. And gypsies are very, very close-knit community. They do not allow you to get inside. But somehow, I feel that maybe they saw that passion and that honesty in me coming from India, pursuing flamenco, wanting to do flamenco. One of the only few Indians who want to do flamenco. And they accepted me with open arms, and there was no looking back. I was there inside the world of flamenco, in the community of flamenco. And I could not believe for myself. There were days and times when it all felt like a dream. When I woke up in the morning in those caves to go for my classes, to study, to pursue flamenco. I gave about 3 to 4 consecutive years living in Spain, living in the south of Spain, pursuing flamenco in those academies, studying with different teachers, different maestros, different schools, different flamenco families. But there are generations of flamenco families. It's a very different music form, a very different dance form. Rhythm form is very different rhythms. So I was finding it very difficult initially to how to to adapt and how to learn, and that's when I felt a little scared for the first time that is it the right decision that I've taken coming here to Spain and studying flamenco, because of its nature and its different cultural approach. I told myself that I'm going to find and form a way of studying flamenco. What helped me was my studying tabla when I was young, as a child. I studied tabla for about 8 years. So the tabla rhythm, that helped me connect with flamenco rhythm. And I did not study flamenco through numbers. I studied it musically. So that helped me grow and helped my foundation in flamenco. Of course, the language grew by itself. Every day when you speak, you got to listen to a lot of music. You got to be a part of that culture, live that culture to really experience what flamenco is, because it is a very, very passionate form. It is a very powerful form, and it is very similar in a way to the Indian cultural form also, because flamenco also has a lot of music for different festivals, for different emotions, for different professions, and in India too we have a lot of different music for every 100 kilometers. The music, the dance, the language, the food changes. It's all very similar in a way. So while in Spain, while pursuing flamenco, I used to perform for a lot of Indian festivals, Indian events and shows, and represent India in very different ways. I created a lot of opportunities for Indian artists living in Spain and Spanish artists living in Spain, collaborating and doing a lot of events. Then I came back to India. About 3 years ago, we designed an entire concept called Flamenco Katha. Flamenco Katha is a fusion and collaboration of Spanish flamenco with Indian Kathak. And that was with a colleague of mine. Her name is Aditi Bhagwat, a pretty renowned artist from Bombay. So we came up with this entire live show, an original concept, which was a non-stop 45-minute to 1 hour gig, very percussive based. And slowly we added musicians and singers, and we took that ahead to doing flamenco with the folk from Rajasthan. And that collaboration became one of the most beautiful collaborations because of the Spanish flamenco roots from India and Rajasthan. So the Gypsies of Rajasthan, the style of music, the style of singing, the history behind their culture, blended seamlessly and smoothly with flamenco. And we started performing. We performed for a lot of festivals in India, like the Kala Ghoda Festival. We launched at the Royal Opera House Theatre, NCPA, Spectrum Dance Festival, and we also did the Prithvi Theatre Festival. So flamenco was being appreciated slowly in India because through our performances, through my performances, and we are hardly a few flamenco artists in India. I guess about 3 or 4. Because to pursue flamenco, you actually have to travel to Spain and study flamenco and get in that culture and live that culture. A flamenco group or a flamenco team of artists who perform on stage are generally between 3 to 5 people. Could be more, but the minimum requirement is of a guitarist, very important, a singer, a dancer, maybe a percussionist or no percussionist, and maybe a palmero. Palmero is a guy who claps, who creates rhythm, who gives rhythm, who maintains rhythm, or maybe he's not, because generally it's always the singer who lands up clapping also at the same time. So these are basic requirements of a flamenco show or a flamenco team. A dancer leads the show, and a dancer cues the guitarist as to what he wants, as to how he wants to bring in the changes on a live show. You have to know song, you have to know where the songs come from, There are different formats, there are different villages, and there are different origins of different styles of singing. So you have to be aware about them. Finally, at the end of the day, every song is are poetries, are different stories. The structures are the same, but the words, the lyrics keep changing. The stories keep changing. It's important to know as to where this is coming from for you as a dancer to emote and express. And likewise for guitarists and for singers, they need to know a basic of dancing. Very important for them to, because they need to be aware and interact. Eye contact is very important when they're on that stage, on that show, because things change, they improvise. Flamenco is a lot of 80 to 85% of live improvisation. So that connect between this team is very important. So it's very interesting to learn all the avenues, all the elements of flamenco: the guitar, singing, dance, percussion. So if you want to become a flamenco artist and pursue flamenco dance, singing or guitar, I would recommend that you start learning Spanish, because Spanish language is very, very important, because all the songs are in Spanish, all the ways of teaching are in Spanish, and so that you don't land up in Spain and you waste time. Now if someone wants to study flamenco, I teach in India, and what I do is I'll give you a very strong basic foundation in flamenco, so that once you are prepared, you can enter Spain and you can start off, because you will be aware of what flamenco is, what the basics are, because the rhythm patterns and the styles are very different. The language is very different. Understanding of song is very different. And guitar is a very, very important instrument of flamenco. So you could train in dance, in singing and guitar. Flamenco has no age. You can start anytime you feel like. They say the older you are, the more stronger your flamenco is, because it's very internally connected. And there are flamenco dancers who are 60, 65 who are dancing in Spain professionally still at different flamenco venues. So age is not a barrier. You could be from any profession. You're most welcome to pursue flamenco. You should have a little knowledge about rhythm, a little knowledge in music, but I guess Indians are born with that, no? So I don't think that's a problem. It's crazy, but if you are a dancer in a different dance form, then there's a lot of unlearning and undoing that you will need to do. Because in India, you're taught to be loud. You're all over the place. All your other dance styles are all over the place. You're loud, especially Bollywood. So when you come to flamenco, you're given this small little square, and you got to stand there and you have to start. So for us Indians, it becomes very difficult to start and stand and retain yourself in one position and start dancing flamenco. So that is one challenge that you will face, which I faced and I still face. Because when I go back to Spain and continue pursuing and studying, they tell me, Kunal, control yourself. So that's one challenge. Other than that, language is a challenge, and it needs a lot of time. It needs a lot of patience. It needs a lot of dedication, and it surely needs a lot of passion. Once you are pursuing flamenco, you will have to close everything else around you and get into the culture of flamenco if you want to really pursue it professionally and seriously. It takes about 8 to 10 years to really get on a professional stage. But if you can manage to live and pursue flamenco like I did, you stay there 3 to 4 years and study 8 to 9 hours, I'm sure you will pick it up faster compared to the other students from around the world. But then it needs that kind of time and dedication. In India, we also have this entire notion of when you're doing a show or a concert, you don't have too much of a crowd. We experienced this as a performer when I was young. Yeah, there's very less crowd, maza nahi aa raha, you're not feeling that energy, And when I went to Spain and I saw that, there are times, because these artists, they perform every day and they do 3 shows a day. So there are times when when there is no audience, hardly 2 or 3 or 4 people in the audience, and the team of 5 artists on stage, and they have to put up a 1-hour show. I feel that show is one of the best shows. They do not think about if there is an audience or there's no audience. They perform for themselves. They perform for, they are there on stage for themselves and not for that audience, is how it is. And that's one thing that made a lot of difference to me in my life, because somewhere growing up, you're always performing to impress, or for somebody else. But then that changed, and you perform to express and not to impress, is what I learned from flamenco. So when you come from India and you travel to Spain to pursue flamenco, it is expensive because you'll end up spending a lot of time in Spain. You have to cover your costs of living, of studying. So you have to plan yourself well. And it takes at least a minimum of 5 years to get on stage. So if you want to study flamenco, you'll have to live in Spain for 5 years at a stretch to really pursue flamenco professionally. I think it's difficult to get loans over here from banks, loans for artists. Unless you get sponsored, you get lucky. What you could do is maybe you could collaborate with a school in Spain and take up language as a study, and along with that do flamenco. But I don't know as far as financial aid is concerned. It's not easy, it's tough. Unless you go on an exchange program with a university in Spain. But it will not be only for flamenco. You'll have to take up an exchange program either in language or in some other educational form, and then along with that club flamenco and collaborate. I'm still learning flamenco. I'm still a student of flamenco. You're always learning flamenco. You should always be a student. But once there has to be a point where you have to start working and putting into action what you've learned. As an artist, you want to earn money. So it took me about 4 to 5 years to study flamenco, pursue flamenco. When I came back to India, I designed my concept and my show. It took me about 2 to 3 years. And then I started performing and professionally, if you say, for corporate events, for wedding events, for festivals. Of course, you're an artist, you're a performer, so you will end up doing a lot of shows. You have to have a powerful and strong concept. You could reach out to event companies for that, or you could reach out to artist management companies. You could reach out directly to corporates. You could do corporate trainings. You could give classes. But yes, you have to have a very strong foundation in flamenco to teach. So these are a few ways of earning through flamenco. A day in a flamenco dancer's life is very, very exciting, especially when you're in Spain. You wake up in those caves early in the morning to get to those classes. You are always waiting for those classes to start. And you study throughout the day. The classes are intense, they're powerful, they're passionate. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of happiness. The entire process of learning and studying flamenco. Every day is a new day, every dance is a new dance. You never end up repeating the same thing. So it's always challenging, it's always new. You finish your classes, by evening, you go back home. While you're going back home, you think about the classes, It's beautiful, it's special, you think about the day. You're physically tired, you're mentally also tired. I think you're mentally more tired, you're physically, really charged up, because it's a lot that's going to start in the evening, It's like 2 days in 1 day. So after the classes, you venture out to watch flamenco shows. There's shows happening every day, there are performances happening every day. So you learn a lot from observing. For me, it worked like that, as an artist. So you go and watch different shows, different artists every day, and every artist is unique in flamenco. There are so many artists, but every day there's somebody who will teach you something when you go to watch them. There's a lot of, you understand a lot, you see how professionals work, you see how they design a show, there's a lot of different experiences that you go through. And that's when you think, okay, your days come to an end, but that does not end over there. After that is when starts the entire Gypsy flamenco, their community, when they come together, and it's amazing as to how you can just sit there and they accept you with open arms. You can just sit, watch, be a part of it, learn, because so much learning outside school teaches you a very different dimension and a different perspective of flamenco. So that's where you actually learn the real flamenco, with the gypsies in those caves, in their gatherings, in their fiestas. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of energy. You see a lot of different forms of flamenco, how deep and how vast flamenco is, so that's how actually that's how interesting the day is in a flamenco dancer's or a flamenco student's life in Spain. Flamenco dancer's life in India is difficult because then you're not surrounded with the culture, with the energy and the atmosphere that you have, you've lived and you've pursued. It's called the aire. Aire means the energy, the atmosphere, the air that you breathe, the flamenco. So you have to really push yourself here. You have to be in the studio every day. You have a show, you have a concert, you have a class, you don't have a class, but you yourself as an artist, as a performer, have to be in the studio practicing your techniques, it has to be a part of your daily routine, has to be a part of you, just like you wake up and you brush your teeth or you have a bath. And I practice about 6 to 7 hours a day, every day. I try to. Keeping in touch with Spain is very important for me. Listening to a lot of flamenco music every day is very important because that's actually what helps you going, because you're not in Spain, so you're not there listening to it every day. So how do you do it? So fortunately, through a lot of digital mediums, you're able to stay connected with flamenco and the artists. So yeah, that's how interesting you can make a day. You have to push yourself here. You have to actually go that extra mile to push yourself here in India, when you want to do flamenco, because you're alone. You're in the studio and you're alone. So it's interesting. Flamenco currently is a very, very important art form and a cultural form, and it's very famous all over the world, right from Europe to USA and other parts of Asia. It is very strange that it is not big in India, and I really don't know why. So I think it's got a very, very bright future in India. It's a very different dance form, it's a very powerful dance form, and it connects culturally. And we Indians are very culturally rooted people, very musically strong people. So I feel that the dance of flamenco, the music of flamenco can grow in a very big way in India. It's about training. You have to train, there is no other option. And I feel that if you can manage and pursue to train and take up flamenco professionally, there is a long way to go in India. And there are a lot of opportunities and avenues that can open up for you in India, as far as a performer or as an academy, a school, a trainer.
If you found this video helpful, subscribe to our channel for more career videos every week. Leave your comments on careers you would like to watch, and we will try our best to help you find your stride.